Is the male. We're looking at camera number 2. That's kind of the lateral view, and then the distance in the background, that would be north, and that's where the Potomac River Valley is, just a short flight from the nest to the Potomac River where they do their fishing. And they'll be doing a lot of fishing as soon as we see a hatch, and as I said, we might see that a little bit later today. This is day 36 for the eggs. There's 2 eggs in the nest. They've been incubating them very diligently through cold weather, snow, sleet, ice, you name it, lots of rain, and now they have a beautiful day here today. So it takes 35 to 38 days on average of incubation for an egg to hatch. And when they do, I've got a model of an egg here with me. So the big end of the egg, let me get it over here where we can see a little bit better. There we go. Usually we see what's called a pip. That's a small hole. Usually it's on the bigger end of the egg. This is a model of an eagle egg, about life size. It's a little bit bigger than a chicken egg. And so the pip usually, like I said, is in the big end, and it's just a small hole. The little eaglet inside the egg has an egg tooth on their beak, and that egg tooth is what they use to sort of saw or poke a hole in the end of the egg. Once they get a hole made, then they'll start to work at it and crack it. It's a lot of work for a young eaglet to do that, and it can take 12 to 14 hours to fully emerge from the egg. But that's how it all starts, is with a pip. So we want to welcome all of our old friends from 23 years of observations. We saw this nest being built with the first pair of eagles, Liberty and Bell, way back in 2003. And over those years we've had 2 different females and 3 different males that are in the nest now. So the male, longtime viewers know the male here as Scout and the female as Bella, B-E-L-L-A. We want to welcome our new friends too, and so today I'll go over some orientation and kind of background to get you up to speed with what's been going on. Go ahead and send in your questions anytime via the YouTube chat, and let us know where you're viewing from. We'll look at some video highlights today and give you some background, and also talk about some tips and tricks for online viewing. And as I mentioned, we'll do some orientation as we go along the way. So we have 3 camera views. We're looking at the view on camera number 2 right here. And Rob, if you could switch to camera number 3, you had that on a little bit ago. That's the downward view, that's the overhead view. You can see the beautiful feathers, how they're laid out in a beautiful pattern on the eagle's back there. Now, one way we can tell, I believe, see that little black spot on the back of the head? That's our male eagle, known as Scout. And the female's a little bit bigger. We might see her a little bit later on in the broadcast, but we'll keep looking at the nest, and especially when they get off the eggs, we'll see if we might see a pip. And if we don't see it during the broadcast, chances are good it could happen later in the day or tomorrow. Now, like I said, there's 2 eggs in there, so the second egg, whatever day the first egg hatches, we might suspect that the second egg would hatch in a day or 2 after that. And we got one more camera to show you. If you go to camera number 1, Rob, this is the distant view looking towards the river. That's looking north, and you can see a nice big field there. And the white trees you see in the background are sycamore. They like to grow near water, near rivers, and the eagles like to perch in those trees. And that's behind our daycare center. So sometimes if you're on the EagleCam, we've got very sensitive microphones. You might hear some kids laughing and playing in the background. That's the daycare center. You can't actually see it, but it's very close by. They also, the birds, the adults, have another tree that we can't see. Sometimes we call that the babysitting tree. They perch nearby, either behind daycare or in the babysitting tree. So if we don't see them right on the nest, they're going to be there, especially for the first 6 weeks. But as the young ones get bigger, they might perch in another tree. But rest assured, the adults always have a close eye on the nest, and they're going to defend that nest from any birds that they think could be a threat to their eggs or to the young eaglets. That might include ravens, hawks, owls, and even other eagles. There's a lot of competition for nests like this in the Potomac. The bald eagle populations now really have risen dramatically from the 1970s and 50s, 60s, and 70s. And let's take a look at that overhead camera, Rob, and see what we can see on the nest here. So he's going to turn those eggs a little bit with his beak. They do that about every hour or so. That keeps the eggs evenly heated and keeps the inside of the egg from actually sticking to the eggshell. So that's about all the view we're going to get right now. You see that little wiggle that Scout is doing? That's to get his brood patch. That's a piece of bare skin right against the egg for maximum heat transfer. The bald eagle's body temperature is about 105 degrees Fahrenheit, and that allows them to get maximum heat transfer. Both the female and the male have a brood patch like that, and they do take turns with the incubation duties. So, like I said, bald eagles, they really are a true conservation success story. Populations are rising across the country, and clean rivers and lakes are vital to their habitat. We've got a nice piece of video here. We've got a little bit of a drone shot of our Potomac River nearby, and this is what the eagles would see if they're flying from Maryland to West Virginia. We're seeing just a little bit of, you can see a few buildings, just roofs back in the trees. That's the National Conservation Training Center. Shepherd Island is a two-part island, two-piece island in the middle of the river. But this is the habitat. This is the whole reason that the eagles are here. It's because the Potomac is being cleaned up dramatically over the years. Now we're flying down. West Virginia's on the right, Potomac River, or Maryland on the left of the Potomac, the C&O Canal Trail. Downriver from here would be Shepherdstown, and then about 12 miles below that would be Harper's Ferry, West Virginia, where the Shenandoah and the Potomac join together to form the main branch of the Potomac. And then 70 miles from here below, downstream, would be Washington, D.C. So it's a beautiful stretch of river, and we'd like to now take a look at some highlights. While Rob's getting that geared up, let me say hello to a few people. We've got Deb online with us from all the way up in northern Alberta. She's up in Peace River, Alberta today. And Deb, thanks for all your great videos. We're going to take a look at some of those in just a minute. We've got a number of folks on. Heidi from Kokomo, I believe Kokomo, Indiana, perhaps. And it looks like somebody commented that Scout delivered a squirrel a little while ago. I know I saw him bring a nice-sized fish in this morning. Paula out there from Lake Lynn, PA. And Audrey said she just got back. She's saying hello from Terra Alta, West Virginia. Beautiful Terra Alta, not too far from the Cheat River over in Preston County. And hello from Northwest Ohio, John is saying. Beautiful day up there, as it is here. Sherry says, I'm almost excited as when my grandchildren were born. I was heartsick last year when I watched the wind upset the old nest. Yes, if you're just new this year, unfortunately, we did lose our big old nest from 22 years. That big, the original nest, was up in the top of the tree, 90 feet off the ground. The night before Easter in 2025, we had a freak windstorm, 70-mile-per-hour winds, blew it out of the tree. And unfortunately, we lost the 3 eaglets that were in there at the time. They were only 4 weeks old, so they couldn't fly. But the good news about that is that the adults survived, and they're good shape, and they rebuilt in the same tree about 15 feet below where the old nest was. And so that's the nest that we're looking at right now. That's the new nest. And it's about a good 6, almost 7 feet across, about 3 feet deep. And it's a good stout nest. It's in the strongest part of the tree. Deb Steck is saying, and Audrey is saying that they have no sound. A number of people.
That's corrected, Randy.
Okay, great. Rob just said that has been corrected, so you should have sound now. Thank you, Rob. Jenna says hello from Western Maryland. Maybe you're in beautiful Garrett County, Maryland, along the Youghiogheny River there. So, okay, good to have that the sound is back. Yeah, it's close to 80 degrees here at the nest. Hello, Rose from San Diego. Tasha in West Virginia, close by here. Tasha's a frequent contributor. You'll see her videos and photos and posts online there very often, pretty much every day. And okay, welcome everybody. Jenna from Washington County, Maryland. All right, Rob's got some video queued up for us. We'll kind of look back at some highlights of the season here. This is back in February, and this is nest building time. So the whole season really starts in the fall when the two eagle pair get together. They reuse these nests year after year. Sometimes there's some competition and fighting over nests and over territories and mates. That's not uncommon. We've seen it here. We've seen it at many other nests around the country. So as the populations grow, that can happen. So as they go through the months of November, December, January, they'll bring sticks in, they'll bring dry grass in, and this is all part of their bonding rituals, getting ready for mating season and eventually egg laying time. Mating is December, January, February. Then they generally lay eggs right about mid-February, right around Valentine's Day. In fact, this year there was an egg laid the first egg was laid on February 15th, a second on February 18th, and a third egg on February 21st, all 3 days apart. The first egg, however, was not viable. We believe it may have broken in the nest, or perhaps it just was a non-viable egg. In other words, the embryo didn't develop. Somehow the eagles sensed it. Either they saw it broken and they incubated it for a short time, but then stopped incubating it. Then it got buried in the nest. So you can see the size difference in this video. The big female, she's on the left, the male's on the right. Female's a little bigger than the male, a couple pounds heavier, a little bigger wingspan. She's got a little more body temperature, a little more body heat. So she's a little bit better, especially very cold temperatures or at night. She'll usually be on the nest herself. If you want to go to the next video, Rob, this is from the 18th. Now this is the day that the first egg, or I should say the second egg was laid. Happens to be our good friend Raleigh Bosquet, a frequent viewer here of the nest. Raleigh's his 80th birthday, by the way. So this egg was laid on Raleigh's 80th birthday. And I believe that's Scout in there, turning the egg and getting ready to incubate. You can see all the dry grass in there, all that fluff in the nest. That's what they like to have for maximum insulation. And especially on rainy days, they'll keep it as dry as possible and keep bringing that fluff in. So this is, that was Scout, the male that just came back in. He's always busy bringing in sticks. He's always working. He's a very active bird. And he does take turns with the brooding, as I mentioned before, brooding or incubating. It takes a lot of teamwork and nest prep to successfully raise young eaglets, especially after they hatch. And they start growing a little bit. They really love to eat fish, and they'll both be very busy catching fish and bringing them in. Okay, if we go to the next one, Rob, we've got, well, let's wait 1 second here. She's going to get up and maybe rotate the eggs. Yep, you can see her using her beak to rotate the eggs. They usually do that once an hour, and when they settle back down, as we saw a little while ago, they'll do that little wiggle, get the brood patch right up against the eggs. So our next video is a cold winter night back on February 21st, and this was the day that the third egg hatched. So egg number 3 hatched on the 21st, and this is right around midnight. We've got an infrared light on the nest. Now, it doesn't bother the eagles. In fact, if you stood below the tree here and looked up, you would not see the light, but the camera senses that light, and that's how some people call it night vision. It's an infrared light, but that's how we can see there what's going on even at night. And then our next video is the winter day. The very next day, which was February 22nd, we got some snow, and we got a fair amount of snow, and we've had some pretty cold weather as well. But like I said, the female, usually when it's real cold weather or at night, the female likes to be on the eggs because she's got all of that body heat, and she can really do a real good job at keeping the eggs warm. The male, he's a little smaller, a little more agile, a little more adept at fishing, or maybe even getting a fish off of an osprey. Bald eagles are known to do that as well. But having said that, both the male and the female are very good. They're quite capable of catching fish or small game that they might see out in the field, rabbits, squirrels, snakes, groundhogs. They're not particular, they're scavengers as well, so they'll eat anything that they can find or on the ground, live or dead. But when they're raising young, they really like to feed them fish. It's high in protein, a lot of moisture. So right now we'll take a little bit of break, and let's go back to the chat room and see if we've got some questions in here. Let's see. Susan, hello from Martinsburg, just very nearby. John asking, what will happen to the little ones? Well, we don't see any yet, but we may see hatching a little later today, and the adult pair will very diligently take care of them, and we'll see them grow up in the nest. It's amazing. They'll grow from very small, almost fist size when they come out of the egg, to adult size in just 3 months. It's pretty amazing. And I'll show you some photos here in a little bit. I'll give you a better idea how they progress. So Kathleen says, my students are anxiously waiting for a PIP. Classrooms are watching from Aurora, West Virginia, up there very near Cathedral State Park, a beautiful, beautiful part of the state. Melanie's asking, how can you tell the difference between the two? It's a little difficult, Melanie, but the female's bigger, and having said that, whichever one is closer to the camera is going to appear bigger. But really the easiest way to tell is if you go to camera 3, the overhead camera, and look at the back of the head, the male, he's got a little black spot on the back of his head. So that's how we can tell the male from the female. That's the easiest way to do it. Bob, coming to us from Inwood, West Virginia. Let's see. When the eagles, Sherry's asking, when the eaglets begin to hatch, do the adults, the babysitters, feel the vibration? Yes, they definitely do, Sherry. They can not only feel it, but they can hear it sometimes. We often, over the last couple days, we'll see them looking, especially the female, looking and listening to the eggs. And we think they can actually hear some sounds, maybe even some peeps when it gets close to time for the little ones to emerge. So, and I'm sure they can feel vibrations as well. How old are Bella and Scout, and how long can eagles live? So that was Mrs. L's class wants to know. Well, the female, Bella, is about 12, 13 years old, and Scout is a good bit younger. He's about half that age. He's about 6 years old. So Bella came here in 2018, and Scout came here about 2023, 24. When they first arrived at the nest, Scout, for example, he had more black feathers than he does now. That's how we judge their age. You know, when they get to be mating age, that's right around 5 years old, they get almost a total white head. But if you see a few black feathers left, that means they're between 4 and 5 years old. Scouts are almost gone. He's just got that little telltale feather or black feather that we see in the shot now. So that's how we can tell he's probably 5, 6 years old. And so John was asking about the eaglets from last year. Well, we left the eaglets out. The adults did see them. They were on the ground. We came out late that night after the nest blew out of the tree. The adults saw them. We wanted them to, be able to recognize that the young ones from last year were gone. And then after, the adults figured that out, they were back in the tree. They were even where the old nest used to be. So it took them some time to get over it. But not too long after that, they started building, working on the new nest, and so that's life in the wild. Life goes on for them. Later on, we did bury the young ones just at the base of the tree, so they're very close to where they grew up there. Okay, we'll go to a few slides. Go ahead and send some more questions in if you like. And we've got a few slides, photos here to show you, give you an idea of orientation to the area. Potomac watershed is where we're in, the big Potomac watershed. Eagles share certain behaviors. So, if you saw a nest elsewhere in the mid-Atlantic, maybe the one up in Pittsburgh or one in DC or Baltimore, we've even got eagles nesting in urban areas now. Or the farm country nest up in Pennsylvania. They share certain behaviors. They're very good parents. They take very good care of the young ones. This photo shows an eagle bringing a pretty good sized fish into the nest. So that's the National Conservation Training Center in the background. It's the home of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and our main training center for the entire country. We've got folks from around the country, sometimes around the world, coming to classes here that generally last a week or two at NCTC. So it's kind of like a college campus, only our classes change about every week or two. And our folks from, again, all over the country, National Wildlife Refuges, national parks, Bureau of Land Management, folks, U.S. Geological Survey, many of the Department of the Interior agencies come here for training. So over the years, we've had a great deal of support for this camera. We use it as, we're lucky to have a lot of teachers, a lot of classrooms enjoy it, and some great folks who are dedicated eagle viewers from all over North America, really, and sometimes around the world. Here's our location. We're about 70 miles up from DC, right where you see that star. That's the NCTC, National Conservation Training Center, kind of halfway between Martinsburg, West Virginia, Boonesboro, Maryland, Hagerstown, Maryland, not far, Winchester, Virginia, just 30 miles south. Shepherdstown is the closest little college town, Shepherd University there. We're in the big Chesapeake Bay watershed that goes all the way up into New York and all the way south into Virginia. But the Potomac itself, a subset of that Chesapeake Bay, mostly starts in the mountains of West Virginia and Virginia, and also south central Pennsylvania as well. But it all eventually drains into the big Chesapeake Bay. So we'll take a bird's eye view of the training center here, give you a little views that you don't normally see on the EagleCam. This is the view of the Potomac River looking upstream. The training center buildings are here on the left side, the West Virginia side. The eagle tree itself is just off to the left edge. You can't see it, but the uppermost building, the The building in the background, so to speak, is the daycare center. So the nest would be just to the left of that. Now Maryland is on the right-hand side of the river. Dam 4, if you know this area, is barely visible. That straight line across about a mile upriver is Dam 4. So it's beautiful habitat for the bald eagles. This is the view they would see if they flew over our auditorium, and you can see the Potomac in the background. The river is the main reason they're here. They're totally wild eagles. We didn't bribe them or bait them to come here. They showed up in 2003 and built a beautiful big nest, and we've enjoyed watching them ever since. We do have this nesting area posted, so especially during nesting season from about January through July, mid-July, we don't want folks around the tree there, so we do have it posted. So we get much better views, of course, seeing it online. You can see it from the comfort of your home, wherever you live, online. Here's the big sycamore tree. It's well over 100 years old. It'd take about 3 people to put their arms around it at the base. So it's a big, strong tree. And in the top of that tree, that's the old nest there. That's the one I mentioned that blew down last spring, the night before Easter. So if you look closely below that big nest, and by the way, it was 8 feet across, 5 feet deep, probably weighed well over 1,000 pounds, and a lot more if it was wet or filled with snow and ice. So about 15 feet below that big nest, look for that small horizontal line. This is an older photo. This is 2021, but they brought a few sticks in there. That's the strongest part of the tree, but that's where the current nest is now. The new nest that we're looking at is exactly where you see that horizontal line below the big nest there. So we've got some other trees that we often talk about in the chat room. And by the way, if you're on the Outdoor channel in the chat room, feel free to put in questions at any time. And we've got some great folks who are very, very knowledgeable. Deb and Paul and Tasha, Judy, they've been watching this nest for many years. So we might talk about the babysitting tree. It's in the background. It's hard to distinguish. You can see that arrow there. This is from a photo of Deb's. And the daycare tree, likewise, I showed a shot of that before. It's a sycamore in the background. They often like to roost in those, especially as the young birds get bigger. And you can see the big fields out here. So eagles have very good eyesight. They're always on the lookout for food, and their main source of food is here in the Potomac River. This is a Google Earth image looking down. Look closely. You see that V in the river. We'll give you that's Shepherd Island there that we saw earlier. Here's a little better view of the view. This is a drone shot. And that's an island on the left, Shepherd Island. On the right is the state of Maryland. You can see where the canoes and kayaks are, and you can see that V. This is a very, very old, perhaps 1,000 years old fish trap that the Native Americans constructed. There are many of these on the Potomac River, up and down river, not just the Potomac, but rivers all over North America. The Native Americans built these to trap fish, also known as fish weirs, W-E-I-R, like a dam. But they constructed these when the water was very low and shallow out of rock. And so the rock that they used, they would get folks upstream and kind of walk in the water. Again, it's very shallow and low, late summer maybe, and they would kind of herd fish down to the apex or that point of the V, and then the fish wouldn't be able to escape. They would get them in nets or in baskets and take them over to shore for processing. So that's how the native peoples lived along here for many thousands of years before the European settlers even arrived. And we've heard that maybe some of the early European settlers may have used the fish traps themselves. But getting back to more recent times, the river's the reason the eagles are here. This is shots from 2003, the original nest being built. These are some of the earliest photos that we have of the original pair, Liberty and Bell, building the nest. They built it in pretty much the fall, September, October, November, and the next spring they were using that nest. 2004 is the first year that we had young ones in that nest. So it's been great to see it work over the years. Now, here's a shot of the current nest. And I'll just wrap up here. We'll go back to some more questions, show you a couple photos of how the birds change. When they're ready to leave the nest in about 3 months, about mid-June, they're totally dark brown. They've got brown eyes, darker beak, but you can see how they change over the years. When they get to be about 1.5 years old, they sort of look like a golden eagle. But over time, they change. They get those white feathers. Some people call them a dirty bird when they're around 3.5. They kind of look like they've got mud on their feathers. And then 4.5, 5 years of old, they get their what's called the definitive plumage. And that's when they're ready to find a mate and find their own territory and build their own nest. Here's how some of these birds compare wingspan-wise. Our largest bird in North America, the California condor, is still on the endangered species list, but they're coming back slowly but surely. Found also in Arizona up near the Grand Canyon, southern Utah. The California condor's got that big 115-inch wingspan. A little smaller, the golden eagle, just very close to size of the bald eagle. But then our other common birds here, you've probably seen turkey vultures soaring in this area. They like to soar on thermals, and you might see 5 or 6 of them in a group, whereas bald eagles more or less solitary. You don't see them soaring on thermals as much as you do turkey vultures. Then the osprey, known as very good fishermen. Their fish hawk is a common name for the osprey. They actually dive under the water to catch fish, whereas bald eagles do not. Bald eagles skim along the surface and put their talons under the water, but ospreys can go totally under the water to catch fish. Sometimes the bald eagle will try to get a fish off an osprey. And then the red-tailed hawk, pretty plentiful around this area as well. So those are some of our bigger raptor birds. Here's a shot from our original, probably the very first, maybe one of our first photos from way back in 2005 on one of the earliest cameras. So let's go back to the live nest, Rob, and I'll go back and see if we can catch up on some questions here. Jenna's asking, can the public visit the area where the tree is located? Well, Jenna, this is federal property, so the short answer is no, but we are open one evening per month. We have our conservation lecture series, and the next one will be April 16th, and those are free and open to the public. And we'd be happy if you're in this area, of course, to come join us live for the Conservation Lecture Series. Our April 16th program will be an author who's just written a book called The Feather Wars, and all about the market hunting that happened on wild birds 100 years ago. And it'll be a great lecture. We're all looking forward to that. So those are the only times that we're open. We do have an open house, generally once a year. We're going to have our 30th anniversary in 2027. So early May of 2027, we're going to have our next open house. But we do have those conservation lectures. Those are usually a Thursday night at 7 p.m. In May, we're going to have the Fly Fishing Film Festival. And so you're welcome to join us for any of those events. We do ask, though, that you send us an email. If you go to our website or our Facebook page, you'll see an email address where you can send an email in if you'd like to attend those evening lectures that we have here once a month. Mrs. L's class is asking, how were you able to put the camera up there without disturbing the nest? Well, that's a great question, Mrs. L. We only do the camera work in the fall when the eagles aren't there. We would never do anything in the tree this time of the year, regardless. If one of the cameras broke, we would just live with it. But we in the fall, we have a tree service truck come in. We used to have a climber, but the nest got to be so big that it kind of got to be dangerous. So the safest and the quickest way for us to get a climber up there is to hire a tree service truck. Luckily, we have a friend, Cow Friend is his name. He has a tree service company. He brings his truck in, straps on a climbing harness, and goes about 80 or 90 feet up in the tree, and that's how we do the camera work. We've got 3 cameras up there now, and we're fortunate to have Kyle Friend not far away, and he's done some great work for us over the years. So otherwise it would be very difficult for us to to provide these kind of fantastic views of bald eagles' nests. Well, Janella is asking, do you watch other nest cameras? We do, and if you're interested in also other nests with cameras on them, there are about 50 ballpark figure around the country. Go to Facebook, go to Bald Eagles 101, that's Deb Steck's Facebook group, and they keep track of nests all around the country. And that's a great source of information for looking at other nests. But yeah, this one itself keeps me pretty busy. But nearby there are nests, I mentioned urban areas. There's a nest, Dulles Greenway near the Dulles Airport outside of DC. There was a nest at the National Arboretum. I'm not sure that's still working. There was a nest at Masonville Cove in Baltimore. One up in Pittsburgh. That pair actually moved. It was in part of the city called Hayes, and now it's Glen Hazel. So yeah, and there's nests in Ohio. There are many nests around, so they're all fascinating to watch. And these bald eagles have their own sort of quirks. They all have their own idiosyncrasies, but they all sort of have similar behaviors. Janella says, yeah, I watched the one with Jackie and Shadow. That's a popular nest out in Southern California. That's at Big Bear Lake. The Friends of Big Bear Lake have a nest. It's a beautiful shot. It's got a beautiful Big Bear Lake in the background, and they've had some trouble out there with ravens this year. Their eggs were the original set of eggs. Ravens got them, and they may have had some other birds intruding, and often we've seen it at this nest and other nests. If other eagles are around, the adult pair will try to defend their nest and get the other eagles out of their territory. Well, when they do that, that might leave the nest vulnerable. So that could have been what happened out there at the Big Bear nest in Southern California. So Rose is asking, was there a platform added in that spot prior to the building up the new nest? Yes, back in 2020, we knew that the original nest was not going to last forever. It's amazing that it lasted for 22 years, as long as it did, especially when you saw that there wasn't a whole lot of holding it up there. I guess we're grateful that it did last 22 years. But right around 2020, when we worked on the nest in the fall, we took some posts, basically fence-sized posts of native wood, black locust, mulberry, and we just laid 3, 4, 5 posts up there, just basically made a crude platform. Kyle Friend that did that for us. And with the idea that if something happened to the original nest, the eagles would likely build on that lower nest, and that's exactly what they did. Now, fortunately, the upper nest, the original nest, did last another 5 years until 2025 last spring, when sadly it blew out of the tree. But then in the fall of that year, the pair here really started going to town, bringing sticks in and building up that lower nest, and that's the one that we see now. Now you can see that black spot on the back of Scout's head very well there in that last little bit. And Lana is saying there's a new nest in Vermont, in Keachie. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right. Keachie, Vermont. It's brand new this year. So it is amazing how the eagles are coming back, populations. You know, often I go out into a classroom and I'll ask the young people, how many of you have seen a bald eagle out in the wild? And half the students will put up their hands, and I always say, well, you know, when I was little, your age, a long time ago, we never ever saw bald eagles in the wild. I grew up in western Pennsylvania, but the eagles were nearly gone from most of the eastern U.S. There were a few eagles at that time up in the Great Lakes states, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and of course Alaska, but the populations were greatly reduced for a number of reasons. DDT, the pesticide DDT being one of them, caused their eggshells to be too thin, and when they sat on the eggs, it squashed them. Once DDT got out of our environment, and that was in the early 70s, and we had the Endangered Species Act passed that protected bald eagles and many other species. Their population slowly started to come back, and there were reintroductions that were started. And so that it took 30, 40 years, but it worked. And now there were a lot of partners involved, state agencies, federal agencies, non-governmental organizations that all helped to bring the eagles back. And so it's a great success story. And now they're off the endangered. Bald eagles are no longer endangered. It is still illegal to harm eagles in any way. They're still protected by the 1940 Bald and Golden Eagle Protection Act. So even though they're off the endangered species list, they are still protected birds. And Sherry's saying, last year I noticed the largest eaglet bully the smaller siblings. My question is, do the smaller eaglets catch up in size and dominance so they can defend themselves as adults? Yeah, so that's very common, Sherry. We'll probably see that. We see that every year, pretty much every nest. The first eaglet hatched has an advantage because they grow so fast. They, the first one will get the food. And if the little one tries to get it, he's going to get bonked. So that's not uncommon. But to answer your question, yeah, the little ones will catch up, and the adults seem to know, and the little ones learn that the technique is let the oldest one get all the food first. He or she will get filled up, fall over, go to sleep. Then the younger ones get fed, and that seems to work very well. We've seen years where we've had 3 eaglets here, and several different years, and all of them were fed well, and all of them fledged. So as long as food is plentiful, 3 or eaglets are possible. But if food is scarce, that youngest, weakest eaglet could starve, you know, and it all depends on the food supply. But that's how it works out there. Let's see. Lena is saying bald eagle stayed in Vermont.
You have the eggs on the camera, right?
Oh, okay. We've got eggs up there. There's Scout, the male, turning the eggs. We've got a pretty nice view of them there. Quick view, but look how he's anchoring his beak in, doing that little wiggle to get himself situated and get that brood patch. Thought we might see a pip or a little hole in the egg, but not quite yet. But stay tuned. It could happen later today. So let's go back to a few more videos, Rob. We've got a few more videos to show you, and we'll look at a couple videos, and then we'll go back and answer some more questions here. So this is a nice video of back in, let's see, not too long ago, a couple weeks ago, back in March 3rd. And so you can see it was a rainy day, and Bella is opening her, some people call it tenting or a mombrella, like M-O-M, mombrella. You can see how her wings are spread out. She's doing her best to keep those eggs dry and warm. They'll do that with snow as well. The advantage of snow is they can get up and shake it off, especially if it's a dry snow. But water tends to seep in, but they always do their best to try to keep the nest as dry as is possible for them. So we've got some video here of changing of the guard. That's when they switch places, the male and female switch places. And here comes one of the adults in. Now this is a view, Deb put this video together, so it's a 2 or 3 different cameras viewing. So you can see, I believe it's the female putting her head back. Sometimes we'll call that trumpeting. They'll have a real loud trumpet kind of call, a chortle, and she's calling her mate in, and because it's time for her to have a break. And here he comes. He heard that call. He was nearby. Here he comes, and they like to trade places. They'll do this every few hours. You know, you can imagine she might get stiff and need to get out and stretch. So he's going to come in and take over duty, and there she goes. And again, you could see the female, she just took off. She's a little bigger breasted, a little wider than the male. So that's the male coming in. Again, you can see the black spot on the back of his head. And he's going to take over, maybe look at the eggs, roll them a little bit with his beak. And this was back on March 15th. And this was, there was 1 egg in there at the time. This is actually the day the first egg was laid. So here's the view from the upper camera, and we're going to see that sequence from the upper camera. So Bobby is asking, how many eaglets have fledged from this nest? Well, it's, I don't have an exact number for you, Bobby, but it's in the neighborhood of 40, mid-40s, 45 or so over the years. And that's been a productive nest. Some years we've had 3 eggs and 3 fledged, and other years we've had none fledged, and sometimes 1 or 2. So it's varied over the years, but roughly speaking, 40 some. I'd have to go back and count to give you an exact number. If you go, I didn't mention this yet, but when you're online on the Outdoor Channel EagleCam site, right above where the chat room is located, look for nest history and frequently asked questions. And Deb and Tasha and other folks maintain a spreadsheet there. They've got some great resources, photos, and so if you're looking for information like that, you can go back and look at nest history and see an exact number there. So one of our classroom teachers is saying, we have inadvertently left the volume on during class and had the eagles call out. We love hearing them and have gotten surprised more than a few times. Yeah, I have as well. And you kind of look around and wonder where the sound's coming from. Then you realize that you left the speaker on. But they can get pretty loud and shrill. But that's a kind of another trick for watching the eagles. You know, oftentimes we'll leave a nest on but leave the volume turned up, and then you'll be able to hear the eagles take off or land. You know, they make a kind of a loud rustling sound. You hear the sticks when they land or take off, and so that's a good view. That's a good cue to look at the nest and see what's going on. Jean is asking the age of Bella and Scout. Bella's about 12, 13 years old, and Scout is about 6 years old. He's been here, this will be his 3rd season at the nest, but Bella's been here since 2018. And in both cases, they were about 5 years old, roughly, when they came here. And Rob, I think maybe we've got time for one more video. So this is March 24th. And that's another way you can tell Bella. Look at that spot on her neck. Sometimes her neck, the white part on her neck kind of spreads apart and the dark feathers go up in a V. That's a little trickier to tell, but she's also got very thick legs above her talons, much thicker. Now she's putting her head back there, and you can hear that call. She's kind of chomping at the bit. She's been on the nest a long time, and she wants to get off there now. So while we're looking at this, I'll talk about a few tips and tricks. You can, as I mentioned, keep the volume up, and that way you'll know when they're coming or going. That's a time to get a better view of the eggs or the eaglets. All three of these cameras do have a 12-hour rewind, or a DVR, digital video recorder. You can go back in time. However, let me mention that just in the last few days, some folks have been having a little trouble with that. What's going on is YouTube and Google are working on their interfaces, and this video feed from our cameras goes out to YouTube, and then it's embedded on the Outdoor Channel's pages. Another view of the last video there. So those glitches are not originating here, and unfortunately we can't do anything about them. So the best thing that we can say is if you're having trouble with the rewind or signing in, go up and on your browser and clear the cache. You might have a PC or a Mac, different browsers. You might have Chrome or Firefox or Safari or Microsoft Edge. All those are a little different, but if you just search for how do I clear the cache on my particular browser, Chrome, whatever, then it's pretty simple. You just go to the settings and look for clear the cache. You might have to do that a couple of times. And you might have to just clear out of the EagleCam and come back in, maybe even restart your computer. But hopefully over the next couple of days, they'll get their Google and YouTube will get their refreshing done, and we'll go back to a little smoother interface. So you can switch cameras for a better view. If you're wondering who's in the nest, this is the camera we're looking at, is camera 2. You can go to the upper view, look down, and see if it's Scout, if he's got that black spot. You can also look back and read the nest history, and that'll give you some background information as well. And if you're looking for the direct links from YouTube, Deb has those posted in her nest history. Also, at the bottom of the screen, there's a little gear or a control wheel that allows you to change the speed and the quality. So if you've got a slow internet connection, you might go down, click on that little gear wheel, and often it's done automatically, but you can change to less resolution if you're having trouble with the video choking on you. So Sherry's saying, I've noticed this morning there has been both adults in the nest together more frequently. Is that an indication they know it hatches soon? Yeah, I think so, Sherry. Good observation. The male, 2 different times today, he brought in dry grass. He brought in a fish this morning, and a little bit later on, he brought in a squirrel. So yeah, I think they know that a hatch is coming. And before we close out today, I want to mention a few books which are excellent. If you could bring those up, Rob. Now, if you're a teacher or a young person, this is a great book, Beauty and the Beak: How Science, Technology, and a 3D printed beak rescued a bald eagle. Based on the true story of a bald eagle that was found in Alaska. Its beak had been badly damaged, and a veterinarian and an engineer created a prosthetic beak out of plastic with a 3D printer. So that's a great book for young people. Another great book for young people is The Bald Eagle's View of American History. I'm going to read this myself. I've just skimmed through it, but it's a lot of fun. It's the eagle it's the kind of American history from the view of a bald eagle. Great little book there written for kids, but I think adults would enjoy it too. I'm going to enjoy that one. And then more of a high school or up book, The Bald Eagle by Jack Davis, The Incredible Journey of America's Bird. Jack has been a guest here with us on our conservation lecture series a couple of years ago when this book first came out, The Bald Eagle, very good book. And one of my very favorites is by Tina Morris. It's called Return to the Sky. And it's the true story of Tina's work at Cornell University. She was a graduate student at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. This was back in the mid-70s. And Tina was the mother to 7 different bald eagles, and young bald eagles. And these eagles came from Michigan and Wisconsin and Minnesota. And Tina had to figure out how to raise them, how to be a surrogate parent of these bald eagles. It's a fascinating story called Return to the Sky by Tina Morris. Tina was here last summer as our guest on the lecture series. She was again here just a month or so ago, and hopefully we'll get her up on our future, one of our Live from the Eagle's Nest programs in the future. Our next one is going to be April 9th. That's 2 weeks from today, same time. That'll be 2 p.m. Eastern Time on a Thursday. So hope you can join us then. And I think we've got all the questions done for today. So thank you all very much for joining us today. And Audrey says, yeah, Tina's book is a must-read. I would agree with that. If you're interested in eagles, you definitely want to read Return to the Sky. It's a great story. And so we'll wrap it up for today. Thank you much for joining us. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Hopefully, we'll have 2 little eaglets to look at by then. In the meantime, keep an eye out on the Outdoor Channel on the live feed. And we hope to see a PIP starting maybe later today or in the next couple of days here. So long from the National Conservation Training Center, and have a great afternoon.